welcome to Moments with the Master for December 28th. We're laughing because we just did this whole thing, and then I realized I didn't record because I'm still a little jet lagged. But I'm Father Josh from St. Martin's Catholic Church. This is my brother Chris,
And
and
I'm cold.
yes, it is early morning here for me in Kuwait, and late at night on the 27th for Chris. But anyway, we're going to do the readings for the Feast of the Holy Innocents, which are Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 15 through 17, Psalm 124, Revelation 21, verses 1 through 7, and Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 through 18. Yeah, that's correct. So we encourage you to read them all. There's a lot of feast days, and so during this Christmas season, by the way, Merry Christmas. It is still Christmas until it's not. But we are just picking this one because why not? Um, I'm going to do the reading for Matthew chapter 2, and so here it is. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there till I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night, and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, was in a furious rage, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time which he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they were no more. So, the just a couple of background historical things. So we all know the story. Probably the Magi come from the east. It is, I think, it's likely that they were from the region of Babylon. That they were descendants, if you will, not children of, but Magi of the house of Daniel, because he set up a whole group of Jewish um, sky watchers, if you will. That was their job. And So they would have been aware of not only the prophecies of the Messiah, but also watching for the sign of his coming.
I got a question for you.
Yep.
um, okay, so in Chronicles of Narnia, the centaurs are basically astrologers in the
Yep.
same way that these wise men would have been. And they read stories, prophecies
Yes.
in the sky, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, granted, that was a fantasy thing, but he had a Christian mindset. And then I think you remember that the gospel in the Zodiac, where
Yep.
the idea is that all of those images in the Zodiac are telling the gospel story. You've got the Virgin, who's Mary, obviously, and then Scorpio is Satan, I think, and um,
So
was Jesus the water bearer, or was that John the Baptist?
I don't remember.
I can't remember either, but they were all assigned Christian significances, and if you follow it through, then you get the whole gospel story.
Especially if you do the Jewish zodiac, not the common Greek one or whatever. But anyway, go on.
Well, I don't know the Jewish one, but so my question is, um, what benefit is there to um, stargazing in that manner? Obviously, it had some benefit for the Magi.
Yeah, and if you go back, there's a great video on YouTube about the Bethlehem star and what they would have seen in the heavens around the birth of Christ. It's very cool. Um, so I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. That is an interesting question, though. I wonder if anybody, because it's not telling the future. It's actually, this is what's happening right now. God is declaring the heavens declare the glory of God. God is declaring what is happening. And actually, when you read Revelation, it actually talks about, hey, there's this thing that happened in the heavens that is telling what's happening on earth right now. But anyway, back to the Holy Innocents. The Innocents. project. So they come, they talk to Herod. I don't know why that came into my head. They talk to Herod.
It's a thing close to my heart, but continue.
They talk to Herod. They find out where the child is to be born. They go, they bring the gifts. God tells them in a dream to go somewhere else. Then an angel appears to Joseph and tells him to take Mary and Jesus and flee for some reason, because it says here, take the child and his mother and flee. I don't know why he's taking a flee to Egypt or what the point is. Did they have a little
Even
prophecy
better the
with it?
second time.
um, but anyway, so they go to Egypt and they're there until Herod dies. And actually, when they return, they wind up going back to Nazareth to get away from Herod's son. Um, and then Herod goes and murders the children. It's what's interesting to me. So at that time frame, Bethlehem would have been. It was a very small little village, a couple of hundred people, 200 to 300 people max. So when you're talking about the numbers of children that actually died, maybe a dozen at the most in that age group. There would not have been a lot, and and then you have this prophecy, and it's interesting because when you read, so it's the Jeremiah reading is the prophecy, but when you read it, it's not like it's obvious that it's a prophecy. There's lots of messianic prophecies in the Old Testament that were always considered prophetic by the been getting shot at by the by the by the rabbis, but this I don't think was one of them. So it's just this weird, like the only reason we know that it's a prophecy is because God, as he inspired Matthew, said, hey, here's a prophecy of Jesus. Um, so when we did this the first time, Chris mentioned something that, there was, or do you want to say it again? I'll let you say it since you mentioned it.
uh, the general historical consensus is that the massacre of Bethlehem did not happen. However, there is a small and vocal group that I believe makes a great case, which is the massacre at Bethlehem would have been so small that it would have
Insignificant
escaped
in the
the
eyes of
notice of, yes, it would have been considered insignificant to most historians of the period. For instance, not mentioned in Josephus, who does mention Jesus. Um, and and that in it that to me is sad. And then I was talking about uh, the Batman, the Dark Knight movie, where the Joker says, if some random nun somewhere gets killed or a bus accident happens that kills a bunch of children in the Middle East, nobody cares. But one mayor gets threatened in a big city and everybody loses their minds. Yes, and he's right. That one of the reasons that people loved his character so much was not just because it was done well, but because he said true things. He was insane, but he said true, or he was very, very sane. But he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong that our priorities are skewed when we record the deaths of the great and powerful and don't care about the dozen small children who died in a massacre because of some king, because of some political leader who was scared about his position of power.
And here's what's interesting about that is just to take a little jog. When you read the Gospels and Acts, one of the ways to look at it, it is very much this interplay between the Herods representing earthly, worldly power and the church, and this back and forth, because it's you have Herod the Great here, his children later on, Herod Agrippa in Acts, and then it's just this ongoing interplay. But Herod the Great particularly, he wanted so badly to be. In fact, he gave himself the moniker the Great. It wasn't something that was given to him historically. He wanted to be known as great, so he called
Oh my
himself Herod
gosh,
the Great, and he
that
did
sounds like somebody.
he was a brilliant person. He was an amazing architect. Masada, Caesarea Maritima, the Temple Mount. I mean, incredible feats of engineering. He was brilliant. He was an athlete. He is actually the person that is believed to have been the person who created the idea of a gold, silver, bronze type of thing in the Olympics, because he didn't just want an olive branch. He did javelin, I believe, but he wanted to be able to be said, "Oh, I beat these other people," um, and yet what he's really known for is this one event: the death of maybe a dozen kids. And this is what I really want to walk away, is that God cares. The historical record doesn't care because it's so few, but God cares about the few. God cares about the poor and the innocent and the individuals. In this instance, these children very much died for Jesus, just as Jesus was going to die for us. And so I do believe there is a special place in heaven for them. Even though they're not named, we will find out who they are when we get to glory. But it's easy for us to get really wrapped up in, and we do, in celebrity. And oh my gosh, Robin Williams died, which is sad. Or this, hey, the guy that played, um, it was the what's his name, Darth Vader, died, and everybody's sad. Or the guy that originally played Boba Fett died, and everybody's really sad. We don't care about the tens of thousands who are aborted, or the hundreds of thousands of children who die of starvation, or the children, or the prisoners who are mistreated and get COVID and die in a prison alone, or any number of other things. We forget all that. And I think the miracle of the church is that when we do it right, we turn that on its head. I was listening to somebody who was talking about the early church, and how it impacted Rome, and really changed in 300 years. It flipped the script. And the guy was talking about it wasn't because of protests against the emperor or demands for religious freedom or the ability to worship. It was the Christians in the Roman Empire quietly doing what Jesus told them to do, waiting under bridges when people would bring children to leave them to be exposed to death, and taking them and raising them, taking care of the poor and the infirmed and the sick and the crippled, establishing hospitals, and staying in Rome to help the sick when all the wealthy would leave to go off to their estates to get away from the plague. And as time went on, people realized, there's something really different about these people. It was their actions that changed the world, not their words. Maybe we need to be more people of action than
Not
of
maybe, absolutely. When you were talking about that, Father Damien popped into my head. You know him, the Catholic priest who went to the leper colony in
oh yes,
Hawaii.
yes, yes, yes.
Um, but throughout history, like, people talk about the church being the cause of the Dark Ages and all of that, but it was the church that was like the main engine of literacy such as it existed during that period. It was the church that kept foundlings and orphans. You left them on the door of the monastery, to
It
the point where
preached.
it's a literary meme and movie meme today, the kid who gets left on the monastery door.
Yeah. And it
That
priests who
was
stayed in cities that were overrun by the Black Death, when no one else would stay and help those people. And many of them died as a result.
It doesn't excuse the evils that the church has done and the times when we have ignored the least of these, but it doesn't diminish it either.
Right. So anyway, let's practice being the best of who we are, and then let's challenge others to do the same. Others in the family of God to do the same. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.